is there any stomach for actually grappling with these issues with an election year looming, not only for the president, obviously, but also for Congress?
If they could reach a bipartisan agreement,
big if,
even if people disagree with the particulars. You got a mini example of that at the end of the year when the president and Congress made an agreement on the tax thing. And I didn't agree with all of it, but I thought he should take it because it was the best deal he could get, and I thought the Republicans should take it from their point of view as the best deal they could get. The American people supported it overwhelmingly, even though there were things almost every American didn't like about it. There is a real hunger for us to do things, so I think a lot of these polls will shift if they reach an agreement. And I wouldn't put it past the president and the Congress to be able to reach an agreement next year because it's an election year and because the Republicans now have the majority in Congress and they want to hold it.
The Democrats are in a better position to agree to consensus than Republicans are?
Because we've proved that we will do things that are controversial, and a lot of us gave... the only thing that I think is working on the Democrats now in terms of taking on any controversial decisions is how many of them got beat in the last election for doing the right thing on health care and the stimulus. But that's partly our fault because we, like I said, didn't have a national campaign. For the first time since 1998, we ran a midterm election without a national message at a time when we needed it. I still think Democrats will vote for a combination of spending cuts and revenue increases, either from eliminating tax expenditures or from changing rate structures. They're just more willing to do it. And I think the Democrats would vote for some changes in Medicare, but they would want to believe that they would actually work to stabilize health care costs and not just make the elderly poorer and more at risk. And maybe we'll have to go through another election, but in the end, we have to listen to people who disagree with us. It cannot be possible that either the Democrats or the Republicans are always wrong. It cannot be possible that 100% of us are proceeding in bad faith. You know, I basically think that the country's been badly hurt in the last 30 years by the adoption of two ideas, one predominantly in business, one in government. The business idea was that corporations are not really creatures of the state. They're independent entities just like citizens. They ought to be able to do whatever they want in elections, and their only responsibility is to their shareholders. Since people hold shares for 15 seconds now before they sell them, what it means is that corporations have become uprooted. My generation was taught, those who went to business school and studied economics, corporations were creatures of the society, and they had responsibilities to all their stakeholders. Yes, they're shareholders, but they're employees and their customers and the communities of which they were a part. We're going to have to go back toward that. The primary government idea we had was the one that triumphed in the 1980 election. The government will screw up a two-part parade. The secular saints of America are the founding fathers. They were all perfect. Just about everything that's happened in the last 80 years is horrible. Government always screws up. There is no such thing as a bad tax cut or a bad regulation or a bad this or a bad that as opposed to government. It hasn't worked. Look at the job numbers, look at the deficit numbers, look at the growth numbers, look at the productivity numbers, look at the numbers. So we have to, if we can break out of theology and get back to evidence and experience and the aspirations of ordinary people, I think we can have bipartisan cooperation. And I think the Democrats are going to have to be willing to give up maybe some short-term political gains by whipping up fears on some of these things if it's a reasonable Social Security proposal, a reasonable Medicare proposal. We've got to deal with these things. You cannot have health care devour the economy.